C64 retro gaming goodness.
Looking back into the Commodore 64's library reveals many games. More games than any other computer or system ever made. And with that, too many great titles got lost in the shuffle. This series is dedicated to highlighting these forgotten gems. Welcome to Commodore 64 Deep Cuts. So in this first episode, we're going to have a look at a pair of fantasy sports games on the C64 that time has forgotten. First is Grand Monster Slam, followed by Blood and Guts. Grand Monster Slam was published by Rainbow Arts in 1989 and was a really good port of the Amiga Atari ST versions, and is said to be heavily inspired by the 1985 arcade game called Penguin Wars, where the similarities are pretty obvious if you've played it. The game falls into the fantasy sports category, with you playing a dwarf who is trying to win the Monster Slam, which is a sports game played between all the crazy characters and creatures of this fantasy kingdom. The goal of the game is battle your way through three different leagues to win. You have to kick all the bellons, which are the furry ball creatures, to the end of the field by passing your opponent, who's doing the same in return. It's a chaotic scramble to get all the bellons to the other side without being hit yourself, which takes you out for a couple of seconds. If you get all the bellons across, then you sprint up the field to victory. There's a ton of unique characters you go up against during the game, each with their own hilarious profiles and sport excellent high-res graphics which really bring them to life. Between matches, there are also two different types of mini games, including the Fulton feeding, where you try to kick bellons into the Fulton's mouths, and bellon punching, where a group of the furry creatures attack you and you have to defend yourself. The game is just overwhelming with detail and humor, with really good high-res graphics that are well animated and an excellent forgotten soundtrack by Chris Hulsbeck that is brilliant, and a total forgotten Sid epic. As a one-player game, it's fairly fun, but obviously has limited replayability, especially if you complete it, which I think is maybe the reason it's fairly overlooked. If it had a two-player versus option, this game would probably still be played quite a bit to this day. But as it stands, Grand Monster Slam is still a really high-quality 8-bit production that has tons of personality and really solid gameplay.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Come quietly or there will be trouble. Thank you for your cooperation.
I'd buy that for $1.
Blood and Guts was released in 1986 by a company called American Action, who, ironically, were Swedish. I had a copy of this on one of my many Dodgy Dave bootleg discs, and when we wanted a good laugh two-player game, this would often get loaded up. The game falls into the multi-event sports game genre, where you play a bunch of Vikings who bludgeon their way through 10 brutally violent events to see who's the ultimate Viking warrior. The loser, by the way, gets beheaded. None of that gold medal participation nonsense going on here. The events are of the joystick decathlon-styled wiggle fests, the kind of game that usually kills your old joysticks. And if you're playing this through emulation, using a console-style gamepad is simply not going to work due to the movements required. The 10 events are pretty varied, and after choosing your Viking, it's off to the killing fields, with the events being beer drinking, cat throwing, tug of war, rock roller, tower jump, stoning, rope walk, pole fighting, axe throwing, and finally arm wrestling. Almost all of these events can lead to your character's death, or at least hilarious results, with losing the arm wrestling having a pigeon shit on your head being a laugh out loud moment. All the events have their own controls that need to be figured out. Fortunately, there is a practice option so you can get it all sorted before you play the real events. The graphics represent the events fairly well, with some decent animation, and each event even has its own musical score, just like summer games too. The fun of this game all comes down to if you're going to play it in the 2-player mode or not. It's not the greatest multi-event sports game on the C64, with the competition on this system at least being extremely high, but it's still a funny variation just like Caveman Ugg Olympics that's worth messing about with a friend.